Get my dad. Wow, that's okay.
Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host here, and with me today is my side mate, John Sweeney. And we're both veterans, and so the bottom line is that I want to make sure you know that. And as you know, I've got a little different garb today. The rationale is that I've been meeting with veterans, preparing them for this upcoming weather that we're going to be having here in the Pacific Northwest, and having a good cup of coffee with them and talking to them about that. And at the same thing, for your information, you'd be surprised the number of veterans that are still out there in a homeless kind of a position and having other problems, mental problems, and this, that, and the other. So when I go out, reach out to them, I normally try to sort of dress down a bit, take the tire off and whatever. But the bottom line is that they've got issues, and and on the other side of it is that veterans are very interested in the politics too of this country. We're part of the main staples of this piece, and so consequently that's the other issue, the reason why I'm very much involved in doing a show like this, to get involved in what the issues are at hand, and then that, naturally, as part and parcel of that resume that I have, I run for office on a number of occasions here in the Pacific Northwest, and for the whole purpose of being at the table when there are elections, especially in the primary, because in the primary you will know basically who will be sitting in that seat, as opposed to trying to focus on being in the seat. And so I wanted to make sure you understand that, because you might have seen my name, and yes, I've run for office on a number of occasions, but the whole purpose is that, again, I was a veteran. I had no background, and so, but the bottom line, I have enough now. And then naturally, I have a direct link with reference to the individuals who are running. Most of them, and I'd say 80% or so, better than 90% of them are not former veterans. So consequently, a lot of times they don't relate, but at the same time they do relate. I mean, I appreciate the fact that people tend to recognize veterans and their services and the like. Very, very important aspect of it. So, but I want to let you know that I've been very active. And will continue to be very active, and that's where I wear this gear, whether it be my cover, my hat that I use, some suit and tie, and ribbons, or this, that, and the other. I want you, the public, to know that veterans are out there, but I want to make sure that it motivates veterans to look at the show also too, because there's a lot of benefits to some of the conversations that I have here in the show. We're doing a live show too. I mean, naturally, the podcast is another big issue right now. People are interested in being in the radio piece. Sometimes they double it, but we're kind of like a visual podcast. See, so with that, so anyway, let's go on and do this particular show. And I've got John Sweeney here with me today, and he was a member of the Oregon National Guard, Army National Guard, and he went through that whole issue of retirement piece too. Again, he's run for office. In fact, he even served in any position at one point in time. But at the same time, he's very active in the various parties and things like that. But he's out there. So that's another reason why you might see him more often than you normally see him, because he's involved. And so it's very important to have something like this, and so consequently we can communicate. So today's show will be basically, we're going to be just hitting on some subject matters that we feel that are sort of current. We're going to hit on some current subject matters, and hopefully they'll share it. And then at the same time, I want you to share this with the as far as the viewing audience, share it with your neighbors, and and we're talking again. Veterans are citizens, and besides having served, but again, they are citizens, and they pay taxes and all the other good things that goes along with that. Okay, with that, John, welcome.
Welcome.
Okay, good.
Glad to be here.
Look, I think this particular show, because like I said, I've been reaching out to veterans and that and the other, and maybe we can talk a little bit about, I think there was an announcement in the paper today, just recently, the Oregonian, and actually the national news aspect of it about veterans, and that was in regards to President Trump, I guess. It's called a meeting for veterans to attend in Virginia, and some 800, about 800 generals, right? These are folks. Are they enlisted? Yeah, these are enlisted, not the ones that are retired. These are positions and the enlisted. I think that's pretty what it is, but I think it was about 800 of them, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he made the point about maybe lowering that number down to 20%, which is about 160 of the 800 of them that will either, I don't know how he will go that, is about seniority or maybe it might be occupational skills. It might be that way too. But the fact of the matter is he's done that. But he's also done it in the in the enlisted ranks too. Because remember that many of these veterans were working at government facilities. Veterans were. Yeah. And he basically, the word was 100%. But I think in that particular vein, if ones were in much need, they could write letters back to the Defense Department and then be given reconsideration. I've not been able to contact that many who are working, who were working and are still working. I mean, I still get more complaints about the fact that a lot of these guys are having problems keeping their homes because they bought, when they got those extra jobs, they went into another bracket, so to speak, and now they were trying to save their homes, and but programs have been coming up. I mean, the Trump administration has come up with programs that will help veterans keep their home, maintain their homes. They're doing that now, working on that right now, so to speak. And so that's a good. So my point is that the enlisted people were very much affected by that situation, and I'm just getting a little up front before I want you to get involved and start talking about this piece, because in all due respect, veterans were highly respected in the VA as far as the medical arena, because those folks had background. They had already gone through boot camp, and they were very much needed, if you will. I even had my experiences with that situation, meaning that they had been hiring. In all due respect, they've been hiring disadvantaged, and they've been hiring, in all due respect, folks who were kind of the marginal illegal piece. They were also working, going through training. Even though they'd gone through the process and was waiting to go before the judge or whatever, get the hearing aspect of it. And I thought that was interesting. But I'm gonna throw this on there. I want you to tell me about it. But at the same time, I'm saying, we can't basically put people in the front of not necessarily just, but American citizens. Because I think about the homeless situation. Some of those folks in the homeless situation who are not veterans, but they're unemployed. And they're having a tough time. And some of those folks are homeless, are hurting, and they're homeless at this point in time. So you think that if you want to retrain someone, or if you will, keep them on a job, you start off with Americans first. Got me? And then in some cases, maybe the primary source might be veterans, because they've already gone through the military piece, and so they'd be a better trained person, if you will. But they should be given more consideration to be hired and maintained, and then Americans hired, maintained, and then those individuals who are basically trying to be Americans, they'd come in third place. Talk.
Well, when you go into the service, it was active guard or reserve, say enlisted, after a little while, because you do a good job, you get promoted.
Yeah.
And you get more responsibility and all that. But yet, the shock is, especially if they went into the service right out of high school and they didn't have any job before, or not much of a job, then they get out on the outside, and the deal is it's like the old deal is you could start at a factory as a drill press operator, and 40 years later, when you retire, you're still a drill press operator. There's no that feeling that you can go up. or you can move around, and you're just kind of stuck as a peg in a hole, and that's really quite a shock, because I remember they were talking about in Vietnam, there was a situation up that the only guy with a radio was a PFC, and he was basically contacting the air support and artillery and out in the unit. So he was running the battle for a battalion because he's the only one that had contact. And the deal is, when you go through basic training and in the squad, you learn all the positions, and you go through that, and you do the low man on the pole, and you do the squad leader and the fire team leader and all that kind of stuff, because in the military, they shift you around, and the deal is, of course, you're in combat while you lose people. And in fact, in civilian life, you'll lose people because they get killed in traffic accidents and things like that, or they get disabled out, and you have to step in, and a lot of times you're able to step up. But when you get into civilian employment, a lot of it, where you start, that's where you're going to be, 30, 40 years later. And even if you do 20 years or 30 years, it's still, unless you could get something special, you could still be a peg at the bottom of the hole. And for a lot of people, that's a shock. And I had a lot of conversations with my troops when I was a company commander and a platoon level, and talking to them, and they says that, and some of them had been in active duty, and that was the shock. And the fact that, they some of them would join and right out of high school, and they go to basic training and come back, and they're all pepped up on all the stuff they can do. In civilian life, you could be a peg at the bottom of the hole forever, and that is a tremendous shock.
Yes, it is.
And then, of course, a lot of them say they've been in for a long time, or say that they made a career out of it. A lot of times they move around, and they don't get a house right off the bat. Now, my dad was in the Army for World War II, and then he got out. Then they did away with the draft in '48, and the Army come down through the Army Reserve and Army National Guard to see if people want to come back in. And so he talked it over with my mother, and anyway, he went back in, and so he bought a house, and 2 or 3 times, he rented out, usually to relatives, but he did to somebody else one time. But he had that house so that when he retired, and he stayed in long enough to pay it off. And in fact, he thought he was going to have it paid off. Well, no, miscalculated. So he went to Vietnam, because when you're in a war zone, it's tax-free. Of course, the enemy's willing to serve you a lot of hot lead, too.
Exactly.
But anyway, he retired after the service, and I tell people, buying a house is the American dream, and you got to work at it. And if the day you retire, you have your home paid for and a fairly new car paid for, good health and a health plan.
That helped out quite a bit.
And I was working for the city, and I only bought one house, and I did not like the process. In fact, every time I turn around, there's another fat hand out there wanting more money. I was about to stick a knife through the next one.
You got to pay more rent. See, the whole idea is to pay more rent.
But anyway, they offered me a buyout, and they were wondering whether I was going to take it. But it was enough to pay off the house, and the wife was working for the benefits. But the deal is that, so I retired, and I thought about working a couple other places, and I thought, there's somebody who really needs that job. And then my parents and the wife's parents were up there, and they had the money, but they didn't have the legs to get around and take care of things, and I did. So that's what I did.
Good.
But the deal is, the whole thing was, when I bought the house, and I was about 46, 30-year payment on it.
Right.
But the deal is, they come out with that buy-off, and I was able to pay it off when I was 58. So
that's good. That's good.
In fact, the deal is, the wife, she come from a family who like to play with the money. I come from a family that doesn't like debt. So anyway, she says, and they give me the buyout, and I think half the world sent me stuff about investing here and there. And I said I didn't give up a job that I liked so I could make house payments.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
And the wife,
but
I paid it off.
And we don't educate our public.
That's right.
Enough about that American dream.
Yeah.
You got my point? And it's a good point you made, because now here we are talking about housing for everybody, homeless and folks who are renting and everything else, and housing. And wait a minute, in one particular case, the person with the American dream and thinking about that house and from a futuristic standpoint, and then get there, and then all of a sudden now they're sitting in a house that's paid for, but the entities that don't have houses,
they're still paying rent.
They're still paying rent, and guess who's picking up that other added rent? The person who owns their home.
Yeah.
And you hear this word every so often. You hear things about even those folks are having problems being forced to sell their home.
Yeah.
They're being forced to sell their home.
Oh yeah, because the taxes are going up. People are voting for these things, and they usually have the tax measures in May when everybody's feeling good, the weather's good, and then in November when they get their property tax bill, there's buyer's remorse comes in.
And you can't change anything.
Can't change it,
Not
no.
the tax.
Yep. In fact, we're facing that this November. It depends on what they're going to do. You know, they're
transportation. Look at the transportation situation.
Oh yeah. Now in that, see. The deal is
Oregon Oregon Transportation,
Yeah.
Department of Transportation, State Department of Transportation.
Yeah, almost always that was the first thing they voted on when the legislative session starts. And normally the deal is they lay it on the table and they say aye in the House, aye in the Senate, and the governor signs it and they're done and they go into the other stuff. This time, Governor Kotek waited until about the last 2-3 weeks. Even the Democrats didn't like that. You ambushed us, you so-and-so. Dirty pool, you know? Because all the trouble that they had, if they would have brought that in the beginning, had time to work on that. And one of the advantages is they would have worked on that instead of messed with a lot of other stuff.
Right.
But so the thing is, right from the top, it was sour in a legislative session because they didn't do that one big issue. And the thing is, when they take care of it in March or February when they start, then the deal is all the downline people, you know, like TriMed and the counties and the cities and the schools know that part is settled. But here they always, as they get up to the end and they're fussing around in May or June, you have, because I was on the Multnomah ESD budget and we're sitting there, and we had a budget that was proposed because we had to wait to see what the state did, because this pass-through comes down to the like say the cities and the counties and like Metro and other special districts, the schools, community colleges, and the ESDs.
You're all doing that batch.
Yeah, and like I said, the legislators, and a lot of them are like school teachers, and they have business dealing with these different ones, and they're saying, "You ambushed us, you so and so." I mean.
They worried about their payments.
One of the legislators I talked to, he says, he felt like I said, they send notes in brown ink on yellow paper. And he says he remembered when he sent some emails, he says, think about it before you punch send. He says, sometimes you better read it another time and then push delete. He says he did that a lot, and he says it's a good thing that he remembered that, because he says he just would read the stuff and hear about it, and he says he just have to sit there, and he says, and this guy says, good thing I'm not a drinking man, because I'd be in real trouble. So that was the whole thing about the legislature and that transportation bill. There's so many other things involved. And now because and if you look around, you know the roads are really in bad shape. Now the state, I was at a meeting and the guy says the state of Oregon is out there putting out wheelchair ramps. Now that makes sense in Portland and some built-up area.
Right. There's a need.
He's from Halsey, Oregon. They're putting up wheelchair ramps where there's no curbs and there's no sidewalks. And he says, actually, you got this patch of concrete with a rubber slab on there in such a place, it's actually a hazard because you could swing wide and next thing you know, you're out of control. You've got a blown tire.
That's right.
You know, and I don't know if people bought tires recently, but you know they're not cheap. You know, you're looking at tires are even the cheap ones. If they're any good, are going to cost you $50 a piece.
Yep.
And you know, and a lot of those farmers with their trucks, they're looking at $100 a piece on tires. And so what they need to say is, okay, what are you doing, and where are you doing it? See, and that's what they need to do. And I've called a couple of legislatures, and I says, you know, you need to ask them what they're doing, because they always say what they're doing. That sounds pretty good, but where are you doing it? Because you know the wheelchair ramps in towns and built-up areas, even if it's not an incorporated city, but if they have sidewalks and curbs, why it makes sense. But you know, if it don't have that, why it does not make sense.
Well, let's think about that particular point. Well, now during that particular process, like you said, the legislature. These are individuals.
Yeah.
They get elected to office.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times that platform, let's say 80% of the platform. I mean, let's say 80%. I wasn't going to say 80%. Use the 80%. But let's say people who are living in the more
affluent
areas aspect of it, who normally get elected and who are normally either chairs or this, that, and the other. Their platform is totally different in terms of representing these folks out in the rural areas and things of that nature, like you were talking about, with no sidewalks and all that other good stuff. See, so when they get elected and that bill comes up before them all, well, guess what? That's where the vote's going to go.
Well, you know, but the deal is the two legislators I talked about, they didn't know about these things being put up out in podunk. See, so all they see is the legislature. Well, we're this.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We're doing this and this. It sounds good. Well, where are you doing it?
Yeah, right. But where do you live?
Yeah.
See, because if the other person over here is saying, "Okay, this is good," it's no problem, because it impact his piece. That might not have been his platform when he ran for office, or even from the issues that he wants to address during that particular time. But it's within his district.
Yeah.
Her district, right? You got me?
Yeah.
But over here, the person said, "Well, wait a minute, I don't even have any sidewalks." Just like you're saying. The danger, this, that, and the other. So again, I'm bringing that point up, is it because a lot of times folks need to know that we run for office in many ways. People have when they're running for office is, what do I need to do to get the vote to be sitting in that seat?
Well, another thing, Well, now I was with the city for 32 years, 8 months, and about half of that I was a supervisor, and so we're in the meetings and somebody come in and I squawked about they were doing something stupid, and they says, well, it's government money, we're coming from the feds, so it's free. I says, no, I pay federal money.
That's right.
Federal
that's
taxes.
Right.
That is my money, and you're going to waste it?
That's right. And government is of the people, by the people, and for the people.
That's right. So they're saying it comes from somewhere else.
No,
it's free. No, it's not
right
free.
Out of your pocket.
It comes out of my pocket,
That's
one
right.
way or the other.
Everybody's pocket aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so the key is that, like you said, so consequently the people who are running for office, like making that kind of a statement, say, "Oh, it won't fix my situation," when it really gets down to their pocketbooks.
Yeah.
They say, "Well, okay, fine. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm concerned." See.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, the way they run those bills is at the front of the deal. People just tend to forget about it, and the people who are going to maybe vote in a more majority are the ones with the deal, and they communicate to these folks down there. No, don't worry about it. Everything's good, But Billy, so at the end of the day, like you said, at the end of the day, it gets passed, and they get forgotten.
Well, I have a wider view, because as in the Guard as a company commander and the headquarters detachment commander, my troops from 17 to 62. So that comes from a wide range of age and interest. So I have to have a concern in their welfare.
Right.
Then as a supervisor with the Park Bureau, I had employees from basically 18 up, and especially the seasonals come in.
Right.
And I pride myself, more of my seasonals become permanent than the other guys, because hey, one thing when I was in the service, one of the things I like doing is promoting somebody and pinning their new rank on them. See? I like to see people get ahead, and so I like to do things so it benefits everybody.
Right.
So many things you got. The poor wants to shaft the rich, and some of the rich want to keep the poor down. The thing is, there's always been poor people, and there always will be poor people, because I know a guy, he won a $900 prize, and he had spent $600 of it on a party.
Yeah.
I said, why don't you use it to take care of some of your debts?
Yeah, that's right.
And he was how do I put this politely? He was butt deep to a tall giraffe in debt. And you know, he pays something off, and he's got $50. Well, I could buy something else. I said, why don't you pay something off? So, but you have people, you know, they get a penny and, you know, put it in their hand, it's on fire until they spend it.
Well, like I said, I think that education system means a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and a lot of times that base is supposed to be there to make sure that all careers, if you will, and entities have a piece of the pie, so long in terms of being educated enough to be able to understand those differences.
Yeah.
We don't spend enough time on that, because you know, when you start thinking about taxes, it's almost like you can compare that constantly, if you will, like paying rent to play when you're renting a place, if you will, and naturally it has to be maintained, and this, that, and the other. You got me? And a lot of times that rent is part and parcel of picking up those items that you need to keep that roof over your head, all that other good stuff aspect of it, and so they don't look at taxes as if to say that you're having to pay rent aspect of it. It's just a political piece, you know, and if the person who's got the power to control a lot of that money, you got my point? And then and you forget the rest of the masses, especially the people down below, because they have just as equal right, because they get taxed too, whether you're poor or rich. And then if you are rich, then a lot of times, you know, everybody's kind of like vying to keep as much in their pocket as they can.
Yeah.
That's the American way. That's our economic system.
Yeah.
But we just need to spend a little bit more time educating folks when they first get to that table, that you need to understand what that system is all about. And if that was the case, then there's no such thing as the rich and the... No, you got different levels. And everybody feels that they have their respective lanes.
Yeah.
And the dollars, in terms of livability dollars and things of that nature, are basically based on their various levels. You might be eating steak over here, but the person over here is eating chicken, or eating pheasant or something of that nature. You know what I'm saying? But we don't spend enough time going through that whole cycle to make everybody feel that if you got a white collar job, or you got a blue collar job, or you don't have a collar job, we do have various levels.
Yeah. And
each of those levels should be respected enough to say, but you're part of the whole. Because the folks down at below, that's kind of like where we are to a certain degree now. Down below, I don't. If I'm not middle class, I can't envision being that which I see represented on TV.
Yeah. Well, you have people who want to climb the ladder and go higher and higher, and then they can't understand why somebody had a job that they liked and they don't want to go up.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
Because when before I become a supervisor, for a while I was a mower operator. I liked that job, and I did several other things that I liked. You know, and some of the guys, that were laborers, they says that they didn't want a job that was responsible. But you give them a job, let me tell you, they were as responsible as anybody, because that was their job, and they had to dedicate it to do that. So it's just so much of people not understanding somebody else's job. And in fact, that's what happened when this Doge thing came out. Somebody come into something, and rather than looking at the function, they didn't understand it. Well, it's no good. Well, that's not true.
No. Everything is part.
Yeah, and the deal is, and if they wanted to do some trimming, they could have done a hiring freeze. Now, when they had the hiring freeze several decades ago, and you had to justify hiring somebody, they actually hired more people than they did before.
Yeah, right.
Because they actually had to sit down as, I want to hire Joe Blow to do this. Now, why do I want him to do that? Or I want to hire Sally to do this, you know. Then they had to justify it, and then the deal is they actually looked at the jobs closer. And in fact, one of the changes when Social Security started in 1935, and the first beneficiary was a woman in 1940, and it was age 65 was a retirement. So everybody worked to 65 except for police, fire, military, and federal was still 60. Well, when they changed the rule in the 70s, and everybody, it was based on people retiring at the end of the year.
Okay.
So if you're running a business and you got 300 employees and all of a sudden 25 of them retired, well, if you really need them, you got to hire 25 and you got to train 25 and you got to evaluate 25. Well, in the 70s, they changed that so that it was so people were retiring all the time, and that's what happened with the city and PERS, where people were retiring all the different times. So you got 25 people that retire over the year. You have a chance to be careful in your hiring and your training and evaluations. And the fact that also when just one or two people leave, the deal is, well, who do I want to keep that job? And the deal is, do I want to eliminate another job so I can move people up? And when you have people with a chance that they can move up if they want to, you know, it's better. And the fact that you could do your reduction in force a lot of times through attrition, and it's a lot smoother rather than dumping 200 people at one time. You know, with mass layoffs, a lot of confusion where the thing you turn around and say, okay, you're going to have to eliminate some jobs here. Well, a lot of people could shift around to the vacancies that are viable, and then some of them that aren't, they just kind of just fall off a little at a time.
Right. Let's get another subject matter. Let's think about something that's on the table that's heavy, has been for quite some time, is the whole issue of homeless. We got the new form of government with the city of Portland aspect of it, and before we got that new form of government, when we look at the picture in terms of the definition of the homeless at that point, and there was kind of like that's what I'm saying, the lane was being built to focus in that arena, and there had a lot of pieces that were there, and folks were making this, that, and the other, but then then you think about who was basically in charge of this peace aspect of it. We had a mayorship, kind of a city, if you will, right? And then we had the county, the whole 9 yards. And so I think it was sort of ahead of the game. But we had all these other issues there too, facing us at the same time. The rioting and all that other good stuff aspect of it. And the advertisement to come to Portland and whatever. But I think they were kind of holding that off there a bit, I think, when we didn't have this form of government. Then all of a sudden we got the new form of government, and the city sort of, as we went through the three commissioners, districtized the area, 3 commissioners per district, right? And then a mayorship with no veto powers.
No veto powers. Real bad news.
That was huge. That was huge. And then all of a sudden we get an election, and then you look at the new folks that are sitting at the table for city commissioners, and in all due respect, they ran for office, that was supposed to us, right? But you start thinking about what are their platforms. Their platform was not about focusing on homeless, on crime, you know, that kind of stuff. And then you had a managing person who happened to have been Wheeler during that particular time, but this was his second term. He was a little bit more seasoned. Let's put it that way, okay? And so now You don't have that anymore. You don't have, Keith Wilson, and I know Keith. He's a very business mind kind of a guy, and he has some focus, and he's been involved, but not city government.
No, he looks like a deer in the headlights,
Yeah.
And every time I see him, the headlights are brighter.
But at the same time, he don't have no veto power. He can't say no to nothing. He
That's
can't say
right.
let's have a discussion. So that's not. See, he is a business person because he was running a business.
Yeah, okay. You bring up the homeless thing now. A few years ago, it was education, and everybody wanted to get into education. So now you got everybody wants to get into the homeless issue.
Mm-hmm.
See, and the fact they had Resolution A, where all the welfare type stuff was supposed to be done by the county,
Mm-hmm.
and the cities did municipal stuff. And then anyway, the county commissioners become city commissioners, and they wanted to do what they're used to doing.
Mm-hmm.
So then you got the city back into this thing. But it worked real well when the county was doing it, because when somebody's world collapsed, what do? Well, check with the county, because they knew what they could do for you, and they knew about the Goodwill and Salvation Army and the Sunshine Division and all that kind of stuff.
But the city, that's not the city's name.
And that's not the
That's
thing
not
now.
the city's name. That's-
Because the people that are milking the system, they know where to go with where all the tits are.
right, exactly.
And so now but if you were somebody working and by the rules and everything's
Right.
going along, and then things just collapse,
Right.
what do you do? Well, you're not into that. You're into going to work and normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And actually heard a discussion that this homeless program we have in Portland, and Portland's always been the best place on the West Coast for those who wanted to live off the government.
Yeah.
And the fact that with all this homelessness stuff and all these benefits and stuff, it's equivalent to a $70,000 a year job. That's $35 an hour. Somebody's going to pay you $35 an hour.
yeah.
You better have something on the ball.
Right, exactly.
And so this is, they talk about this large portion of people that are not even applying for work, but you can see why, because you're going to go out there and have somebody pay you $35 an hour. You got to be something, because that $35 an hour job, you figure the fringe benefits on that, even on a low ball job, is still going to be a total cost to the employer about $55. And then when you start getting really good benefits to it, well, you can hit $65 an hour.
But it's not just 60. But you go on the upper ranks. People are making 100,000.
Yeah, well, then it gets nicer and nicer.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody gets the same cut.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So all of a sudden, it's a big chunk.
Yeah.
If you will. Well, and so the game is, well, why should we? If you're in that particular system, why should you want to eliminate my job?
Yeah, but
I want to maintain this homeless situation.
yeah, and they had pushing a deal some years ago when I was with the city there, and so we went out and about getting jobs for the homeless, and I talked to about 15 of them, and they no takers. I said, you can get on temporary, and you could get these things and probably come permanent. They were not interested.
Then
Not then, and I've
but
actually
today's a
talked
different ball game.
Yeah, well, I've talked to a couple of people that actually come on temporary, and then got on permanent, and they were making more money than his temporary and even his low permanent. But he says, hey, with the city, I can get promoted. Where I'm at, maybe not. And it's
well, it's a fixed career kind of a deal.
yeah.
But the other end of it may not be as fixed, but the taxes are still being paying for that whole piece.
Yeah.
More than this other entity over here.
Yeah.
See,
But the deal,
people
like I
don't
said,
understand that.
Yeah, but the thing is that there's some people, because the bennies are so good.
Yep.
The bennies are so good.
Yep.
And then when I was in Aberdeen, Program, Maryland for my officers basic and advance, Baltimore, Maryland had the best program for those people on the Eastern Seaboard. And then one year, probably about 20 years ago, they decided, they're paying more for this stuff, and the more they do, the more they should pay, but they're not having enough money for the citizens who are paying the freight.
Right.
So they shut it down in July,
Yeah.
and come October, these people come around. What about this, that, and the other thing? Salvation Army, Goodwill, your churches and stuff, because it used to be the churches were real big and
Yeah, big. Yeah,
and
United Way, big
and
time.
they're not as big now.
Yeah.
And so then they shut it down, and when they have the grapevine, they know where to go to get the handout. See, and so
let's take that point you were talking about in regards to you had the churches, you had Salvation Army, you had a whole bunch of groups, if you will, and their budget was not as large as they are today.
No.
As they were then.
No.
I mean that the budgets today are higher than much. Because you think about, in all due respect, with the mayor, he's basically, part of his platform for running for mayor was that he's going to eliminate the homeless situation by December. You got me?
Yeah.
And one of his main staples were the churches.
Yeah.
And naturally, the churches are not doing it for this cause today like they did earlier.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, they've had churches try to set up places in their parking lot, and then the local government comes in. Well, you don't have a permit for this, and you don't have a permit for this, and you don't have this facility, and you don't have this, and then the churches have to shut it down because they don't have money for that, but they had money so people could come and set up their tents, and they'd have showers and washing and food.
But then the politics of the churches, like you said, they're shutting down inspector. But then now someone says, we got to have the money. The churches say, well, if you give us the money to do the piece for this, we'll continue doing this. And a few churches are on board, but not the masses, because if you had the masses of churches doing what they were doing beforehand, they could respond to that piece, but they can't do it with the money. And then you got the parishioners. And
a lot of times the parishioners are saying, hey, I don't want to support that.
No.
And they quit donating, and they go to other churches.
That's right. Say, look at, I park in the parking lot now. Somebody breaking my car and stuff like that, and I'm hearing folks do this, and they're urinating in the parking lot and doing this, definitely. And where do you go from there? And no one gives consideration as to the person that's doing that piece, because that becomes part and parcel of the justification for the cash.
Yeah.
Got to hire some folks. Who wants to pick somebody else's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, and they've tried everybody. They were even paying homeless folks to pick up.
Yeah.
Not their own, but others too, with theirs.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that kind of closed down. Now they're trying to figure out, well, who's going to pick it up? And then the key is that, well, look at it, they broke the law. We got things on the book. You can't do this. That's against the law. Then they're asking public safety, okay, now we want you to come in here and pick it up, and then take them down to the county.
Yeah. Well, the deal is sometimes there's some of the businesses that they pay some of the local homeless to pay different things to that, and it was enough so they can go get a beer.
No, but not now. It costs you money.
Yeah.
I mean, no one breaks it down, from the standpoint, what does it take to clean up urination? Do we know that? But there's a piece within that that's doing it.
Yeah. Well,
defecating and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, they just whiz isn't too bad, but when they defecate, it's really bad.
Yeah, but see, that's what I'm saying. But see, people don't really focus on that piece. Who's doing the job, and what is it costing?
Yeah. Well, if you're hiring regularly, it's a spendy deal.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be picked up.
Yeah.
I hate to keep going back to the same piece, but my point is that we're not giving that thought. But someone will pick it up if the dollars are right.
Yeah.
It's being picked up.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what does it cost to get it picked up today.
Yeah.
I mean, initially you heard about the standpoint, we had a law against that. You couldn't do that. You'd get arrested, taken down to the county.
Yeah.
So now, well, where is it now?
They issue a citation, which they might use for toilet paper.
And they'll say, well, okay, fine. Maybe the police officer, when they pick them up, they can do the same thing at the same time. I mean, you can imagine that discussion was on the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in fact, talking to that today, when you're thinking about today, I mean, it's my understanding. I knew Steve Dunn on Channel 2 made the point about they've hired the biggest batch of folks today than they've ever done for a long time aspect of it. And I looked at some of those faces and I asked myself, well, how many were former veterans?
Yeah.
And what kind of a training did they go through?
Yeah. And there's not much future in it except for there's another pile tomorrow.
And you know, and the idea is that, and then you start thinking about law enforcement, and you look at the definition of being a law enforcement, and this issue of shootings, and I mean these guys that's a dangerous job now. I mean it's a and a lot of folks are saying, okay, fine, when am I going to get paid to do this kind of stuff?
Yeah, in fact, the city of Portland just sworn in 22 new officers.
Just then, yeah.
But the thing is,
and they're still looking for more.
It'll take them a while because they have to go through the academy, which is down at Camp Withicum on the coast. I believe that's where the new, where they've run the...
Well, now wait a minute. Now, this was the last night news, the news the other day.
Yeah, but before they actually get on the street, it might be 6 months.
Well, they didn't say that.
No, the
way it was laid out on the tube, the chief of police was welcoming these folks aboard.
Yeah.
And the people who were looking at the visuals,
thinking, oh, they're going to be on the street.
They're going to be on the streets. I'm going to have more people around my house. I'm going to be more safer. I can walk on the street.
Take 6 months or more.
That's right. That's right. It's going to be worse than that. You see what I'm saying? And but then no one gives consideration about community policing anymore.
Yeah.
And then what about communities? They had the situation where they were basically, from some cases, volunteering, but part and parcel of the process. Mm-hmm. They would walk the street at night. Got me? Mm-hmm. They walked during the day, kind of routine. They would have programs to educate the homeowners in terms of how to report a crime, that kind of a deal. I mean, you hear anything about that anymore?
I don't think so.
No, because people are saying, hey, look, I might get shot.
Yeah, well, the deal is, I remember when I was a security guard in 60, 61, 62, I was talking to a police officer that got on in 55, and he says he sworn in the morning, and they took him around to get all his equipment and all that stuff, and they give him a manual to read overnight.
Yeah.
And he showed up.
Yeah.
And he says, and 5 days later, a bunch of people were off. So he says, 5 days on the job, and he was by himself.
Hey. And then the other thing that gets me about, again, from a media standpoint, look at all the promotion and marketing media gets.
Yeah.
Showing this whole business about some individuals getting on the top of a roof, taking a pot shot at a person.
Yeah.
And then they tell you there, they just basically say to the public, well, wait a minute, the person got a weapon. Where did he get it? Oh, he got it legitimately.
Yeah.
Well, what happened?
Yeah. And they've known some of these people that are kind of off the wall
to
and they
begin
haven't
with.
talked about.
Yes.
You know?
And so the key is that, and then now you're trying to recruit some folks to be more officers.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the piece that they had, again, Channel 2 had a deal where they would basically had citizens coming in, and he was interviewing these folks and whatever. And I said, wow, John, we've been there before.
Yeah.
We talked about this stuff. And I'm trying to figure out, well, now, but there were no solutions.
No.
There were no solutions. And then we need to talk about solutions.
Well, one of the things is they pass more gun control laws, but they don't enforce the laws that we have.
They don't.
And in fact, there's 2 dead women in this area because one guy got out of prison, a felon.
Yeah.
He cut several times with a gun, and then 3.5 years out of the joint, he killed some woman. Well, if they'd have taken care of him right off the bat, she'd be alive. Another guy got out, same thing, cut several times. Instead of being put away for 5 to 10 years, no. And so he killed the woman and killed himself.
Yeah.
So and the jurisdictions that do that, enforce that law, felons don't want to go back. So the deal is they generally don't have one, or they have one and they can throw away. But the deal is, it really cuts down on it.
Right.
And a lot of things, enforcing some of the laws, they just.
And then, like you said, and then housing folks like that, if you will.
Yeah.
We've eliminated structures that we already had.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes to mind right off the bat is Wapato with the county.
Yeah.
We had a facility. already equipped to take care of that shit.
And they would never pass the operating budget,
Right.
and that thing would have flown
Yes.
probably 90%.
Brand new building that was built, $90 million,
Yeah.
and sold for $5 million. Sold for $5 million, and the entity that bought it is looking to the county to give him monies to rent it out.
Yeah.
See, something's wrong.
Well, you know,
We need that facility today.
well, the deal is with the city for a long time, and sometimes they would stop doing something themselves, and then they would contract it out, and they would not police the contracts, and so they would not get their money's worth. And so everybody gets cheated because you don't have the employees really doing it, and you're paying for it.
Yeah.
And so the employees lose, and the citizens lose, and they're the big losers.
Right. And just like you said early on, when you said we got the county and the city,
Yeah.
and the county was basically responsible for the low end. You got me?
Yeah.
And then you had the city, and then the city was basically the enforcement people. They'd pick you up
Yeah.
and take it to the county.
Yeah.
And then the county had systems that worked that piece out.
Yeah.
And if they ran out of beds, if they're homeless and whatever, they'd rent some beds somewhere else.
Put them up in hotels.
But
and
but my point is that they'd maintain that. That was the system.
Yeah.
And now today, you got entities that have gotten into business. Everybody's up there talking about housing for the homeless
Yeah.
because they have no background.
Yeah, but what you're looking at now, instead of, say, with the county one hierarchy controlling over it, you've got all of these different ones that have a lot of people paid a lot of money,
Yeah.
shining chairs with their butts,
Yeah.
and they're competing and with ideas, and your idea is not good, mine's better, then somebody else comes
Yeah,
back yours,
yeah,
and
yeah,
round and round.
Yeah.
And they're making a lot of money,
Yeah.
making a lot of noise, and
Yeah,
nobody's getting help.
And no one wants to get rid of the system now. Because people are making money off the deal. And it's not the poor guy or lady, woman,
No.
that's in a homeless position. It's not the individuals.
No.
It's that structure
Yeah.
that's saying, I'm responding to it. And no one's basically vetting that situation, not at all.
Yeah. In fact, there's a classic cartoon that was in the paper, and it showed a good-sized ship, and they had the executives up there
Yeah.
deciding, and there's one guy down there rowing the boat.
Yeah.
And they're all saying, we're going to have to make some cuts around here.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
guess who they're going to cut?
Yeah.
The guy rowing the boat.
Yeah, right. That's right. No, it's so we're trying to talk to this issue because we got to do something along this particular line, and so you ask yourself the question, well, where do we start? You know, and I'm saying we got a new election coming up now. We got another election coming up, and I think we need to be seriously to let the people know who wants to run for office, what the issues are,
Yeah.
and
Well,
let them stay focused on those issues.
well, sometimes what happens is the press runs the issues because that's
Well, they do it. Yeah, they do it.
And it has
They-
nothing
yeah.
to do with it. In
Yeah,
fact,
they do it.
Yeah, one of the guys was running for state treasurer, and he was at the Willamette Week, and they're asking all these questions about education.
Yeah.
And he says, "Now we're not running for the superintendent of public education. We're running for treasurer."
Yeah.
They asked a couple of money things, and the other guy didn't know anything. He probably couldn't balance his own
That's right.
checkbook.
That's right. But he can communicate though.
Yeah.
He can talk, right?
He polished the right apple or kissed the right hiney, but
Yeah,
the deal is he got all the endorsements and he won.
I mean, and again, going, we're talking about across the road. We've been spending an hour trying to still, and there's so many issues we could talk about, right? You got
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
And then when you think about that piece and going right back to this city government that we have today, we got 3 commissioners per district, 3 commissioners per district, and these folks are meeting every Wednesday,
Yeah.
8, 9, 10 hours,
Yeah.
having discussion among themselves downtown.
Yeah.
And you bet you can go to YouTube, and now you can look at the show, you can look at the meetings if you want to stay up that long and go through that live on YouTube.
Well, if you're going to do that steady, I suggest you get a bargain on barf bags. So.
I mean, but see, even the people that are there, they're OJ on the job training. We don't need no OJT, but the fact of it is, you can't blame them. The idea is, who put that system to begin with?
Yeah, and they've been spending money like a drunken sailor.
Oh my God!
They want to hire a consultant to explain to them what their job is. See, their job is consular, and that's their title. And so, just like the legislature, it's to convene and to pass a budget and to pass ordinances and stuff, but you're not running anything. They're actually like a bunch of screaming kids in the back of the bus, except for, in this case, you can tell the driver to make a right turn when he doesn't want to.
But I'll still put the blame on the people, because the people who are basically complaining a lot is a lot of times that responsibility, because it's a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not the elected officials. So they got to get a little bit more involved with who they elect. You got to get in that election process to make sure that whatever the person is running for office, that should be spelled out. That should be spelled out, and then they should be saying, okay, I'm going to run for office, and I've got these skills to respond to the solution. Have the issue and the solution at the same time.
Yeah.
And put it out there to get the best person sitting at the table to get the job done. But we're not doing that.
Yeah, if they're going to keep the same form of government, what they need to do is have 12 districts, so you know who your consular is, because you have the 3 in there, and you go talk to one of them, they'll tell you talk to another one.
But you got to make sure you divide that turf. They got to make sure that piece of real estate, that the people understand who is part of that piece of real estate. Right now they just all sitting around at the same time and not responding, if you will, to the areas that they're supposed to be. You got 3. That should be, like we talked about before, that should have been divided into 3 different sections.
Yeah. So there should be a total of 12 districts.
That's right.
So each one, so you know who your pigeon is, and I know who my pigeon is.
You like to have one big district and then the sub-districts for each district, see? Yeah. Like you said, three different districts, but they're not doing that.
No.
See, and until we address that piece, it's going to be worse.
And in 2026, Multnomah County is going to do the same thing.
And then guess who has to pick up the tab at $150,000 a crack?
Yeah, and that's more money than they were making before when they actually had to do something.
That's right. That's right. At least you had some idea, because when you had the 4 districts beforehand, at least you had some idea who that person was, who your representative was. Now you don't know.
No.
Well, but again, like I said, we're not saying we're trying to upset everybody. I'm just saying what the issues are right now today. We got problems. We got an upcoming election, and I think that the citizens, are going to have to sit down and think about this stuff. You got to maybe call up the media, let them know about the piece, about that problem aspect of it, and maybe they need to spend a little bit more time defining what these folks are supposed to do. We got to define it, and that's to me, that's what we're doing here to a certain degree. But how many people are envisioning? Well, we run for office. We know the game.
Well, you mentioned the election. There's possibly one. There's one for November 2nd this year. Well, the ballots will be out about October 20th.
Exactly. It's right around the corner.
Right around the corner. I mean, the deal is, if you were to trip and stumble, your nose would be in it.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Well, guess what? That's going to be our next show. Basically, we're going to be spending some time.
Oh yeah.
That's what we're doing today. This is just a start, folks. So I want you to know this is a start. We're going to be right there doing everything we can, and we do have the experience. We've been to boot camp. We've been out of boot camp. We run for office, the whole 9 yards. We know the game.
Yeah.
And we're going to help as much as we possibly can. We live here too. We're going to be more responsible. Okay. So please tell your neighbors, get more involved. I mean, that's what it's all about. And we do have some solutions. We haven't talked about solutions. Here's somebody that's giving us a call right now who wants to talk about the piece, but you're going to have to do it. You have to do it on the next show. Okay. Have a good one. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.